Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to be here and help kick off this panel. My name is Shelley. Right now, I'm a student of elementary Kazakh here at the Summer Intensive Language Program. But when I'm not studying languages, I am working with languages. I'm a freelance translator and consultant. Mostly I translate from Russian and Uzbek into English. And then I also have a library consulting business. I help libraries buy Russian language materials for their collections. So kind of both sides of my career are language focused, and I work solely as a freelancer. So my job today is to tell you a little bit about freelancing as a kind of a career choice and a lifestyle choice. It's one I really love, and it's not right for everybody, of course. To tell you a little bit about what I do, mostly I do translation. I translate a variety of types of texts, everything from marketing texts, computer games, legal documents, up to poetry, short stories, books from Russian and from Uzbek. But translation is not all I do as a translator. I also edit other translators' work. I plan events for translators. I run the local branch of like our professional organization for translators and interpreters here in Seattle, Washington, where I live. I give conference presentations. I write book reviews, all kinds of kind of translation adjacent activities. So my workday is usually pretty varied. Which is one thing I like about it. Then as a library consultant, I do a lot of shopping for libraries and advise them on what kind of books they might want to have in their collection. This uses my language skills directly because most libraries don't have people speaking a multitude of different languages on their staffs, but they do have people who speak lots of languages in their communities who want to use library services. So I try to help them fill that gap. Freelancing as a career choice is not one that everyone makes, not one that's right for everybody. So I have a little presentation I want to show you. If we can get it going. So you have to tell me again, can you see the presentation or only my view?
It's doing the presenter view again, but I know that we figured it out pretty quickly earlier on, so I'm confident we can get it.
Here we go. All right, now I think you should see just the pros and cons screen. Is that right? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So here's your quick quiz to see if freelancing is the right choice for you. The first pro of the freelance career is that you are your own boss. This is the first thing everybody thinks of. So you set your own schedule, you decide when you take a vacation, you decide what projects to accept and what projects to reject. The flip side of this is that, in fact, every client you have is your boss. So you're working for a multitude of clients probably, and you have to juggle their priorities and see which of their priorities match your priorities, and you have to answer to all of them. Another pro is that you get this variety of work. So this week, for example, besides studying Kazakh, I translated a press release for like the city of Moscow. I translated, what else did we do? Oh, we worked on a TV script, TV like cartoon show for little kids from Russian. So it's completely different stuff all the time, which I really like. On the other hand, work can be not stable as well. If you have a 9-to-5 job, you have something to do every day. If you're a freelancer, you might have a lot of projects one day and then nothing at all the next, or you might have weeks of, a dry spell that lasts for weeks and then way too much work the next week. It's unpredictable. As a freelancer, you get to use your talents and skills, which is really awesome, especially for those of us studying languages, rare languages. It's a chance to actually use all this knowledge that you've worked so hard to achieve. You also, though, need to keep developing your talents and skills. So you need to pay to go to conferences, you need to join professional organizations, make sure your knowledge is up to date and that you're developing your skills all the time. You do get to make your own decisions as your own boss, which is a big pro. However, the flip side of that is that you have to make all your own decisions. So you never get a break from that. You don't get the comfort of somebody telling you what to do and what your priorities are. You have to make those decisions for yourself. So these are some things to think about if you're weighing on the possibility of going into business for yourself and being a freelancer. Again, it's not for everybody. For freelance translation in particular, what do you need to be a freelance translator? Obviously, you need the language skills. Most freelancers translate from a language they've learned into their native language or into a language where they have native level proficiency. And that means generally you speak like an educated native speaker, even if you didn't grow up speaking that language. So that's, you know, the vast majority of cases. That's because writing skills in your target language are so important to producing a good translation. You also need to therefore practice translating. So you can be an excellent student of language, but find translation difficult, find translation awkward, coming up with that really good way to formulate that phrase you understand so well in Tajik, for example. You just can't quite express it the right way in English. So that's where translation really comes in as a skill that's separate from language comprehension. It's something you need to practice. And then to be a freelance translator or a freelancer at all, you need to set up your own business. You're a business person all of a sudden. So instead of, you're not just a skilled practitioner, you don't have just the knowledge, you are a business person as well. So the rest of my slides will look at that business aspect of freelance translation. Being a business means lots of things. You have to manage your time and your money, meaning your schedule and your income. You have to make connections and do your networking. You have to develop your skills, like I was already saying about language skills, translation skills. You have to market yourself. If you're hanging up your own shingle, being a business for yourself, you have to advertise. And then you have to manage all the logistics of a business. This is taxes, bank accounts, setting your fees, things like this. So we'll talk about each of these things briefly. I'm going to go through pretty quickly, but make sure we have time for all the panelists, but I'd be happy to answer lots of questions at the end. So make sure you record those questions you have. Organizing your time is really, really important when you're working on a variety of projects. To do this, you have to know how fast you work, how fast you translate. And this takes experience and it takes some practice actually doing the calculations, timing yourself. So if someone says, can you translate 2,000 words for tomorrow? You know the answer. As soon as you read the text, you'll have an idea of whether it's possible, whether you're going to do a good job or not. Remember, you can't translate all the time during the day. So if you're going to translate, if your workday is 8 hours long, you cannot possibly translate for 8 hours. Your brain will fall out of your head. So you need to leave time in your workday to relax, time to reflect on what you've translated, time to check your work. Plus you have a bunch of other obligations as a business person. You need to leave some time in the day for marketing, time in the day for answering emails, things like that. On the screen is an example of a chart I used a couple years ago to organize my time when I was working on several books at one time and other projects. So the numbers in the columns represent my shorthand for like the unit of time that I give myself to work on a thing. I call it a chunk. It's a scientific term. So I worked on my neuroscience project for 2 chunks during the week, et cetera, across the row. And then I know how much time I need to spend on each project that I'm working on each week in order to keep up with everything. Your system will be different, but this is one example. You also have to know the market for translation. Beginners always want to know how much money they can charge, and that's a difficult question. The one place you can look is a translation portal called proz.com or pros.com, and they occasionally survey users and ask how much they charge for translation. So this is the data for Russian to English translation from 2020. They have a big sample size. You can see 7,502 translators answered this question, and they gave kind of their minimum and standard rates per hour and also per word. Those are the 2 most common ways of charging for translation work. But this is going to vary a lot according to your cost of living, your experience level, how quickly you can translate, things like that. So these are just questions to think about. Rates are higher for less common languages. So Russian is somewhere in the middle. It's not as common as Spanish, but it's much more common to find a Russian English translator than a Tajik or an Uzbek translator. To the question of how much you want to charge for your work, you need to answer a couple of questions for yourself. You set your own rates and you decide how much you want to earn and how much you want to work because you're your own boss. So you do some math and figure out how much you need to charge in order to earn as much as you want to earn per hour. All right. And again, you need to know how fast you translate and do more math and figure out how much to charge that way. Then, of course, once you come up with that answer of how much you want to charge, you have to answer the question of whether clients will pay you that much. So that's a separate question. But these are the things that need to go into your thought process for that. There is a tool online called the Freelance Translator's Fair Pay Rates Calculator. If you Google it, you can find it pretty easily, and it'll help kind of walk through these calculations. Making connections is a very important part of being in business for yourself. Freelancing can be very lonely. You're kind of sitting in your own office all day, interacting only over email. But you can make connections with your clients, of course. You want to make sure that you have enough of a relationship with them that they trust you, that they think of you first when they have a translation job. With editors, as translators, our work gets edited, and sometimes we get to interact with those editors, see what changes they're making, what suggestions they're making. And there's a whole art of dealing with editors, with being edited, and with being a good editor yourself too. So you have to manage those relationships carefully. And with colleagues, whether you're editing their work, supporting them in their work, helping them promote their work, it's really important to reach out and make connections with colleagues. I'll talk a little bit more about how to do that as well. One example, though, is that our formal translation collectives. A friend of mine here in Seattle is part of this Black Squirrel Translator Collective. There are 3 or 4 Spanish-English translators who met at Kent State University during their master's program there. They're all in business for themselves, but they share a certain amount of the work. If somebody writes to the collective with a job, the 4 of them talk about who can take it. One of them usually translates, another edits. They split up their profits every month and kind of settle accounts. So it's a really great way for them to work together with people, even though they're independent workers. Somebody can go on maternity leave and everybody else covers her work, that kind of thing. So I think this is a really good model if you can set it up. You can also join bigger organizations. The American Translators Association is the biggest one in the freelance translation field, though over 6,500 members. It's the big professional organization in the United States. Other countries have their own huge organizations as well. They have a big conference every year. They have a magazine. They have helpful blogs for newcomers, and they have these local chapters. I'm the president of NOTICE, the Northwest Translators and Interpreters Society, but there is one near you as well if you're in the United States. And I really recommend, if you go into freelance translating or interpreting, joining one of these local chapters. You'll meet all kinds of people doing translation or interpreting as a career, and you'll learn a lot from them. Other translator groups as well get divided up according to the field they work in. So judiciary interpreters and translators work in the legal field and courts. There's the American Literary Translators Association, ALTA. There's associations for children's book writers. They welcome translators as well, and all kinds of other things depending on where you live and what you're interested in. You can also join industry groups. Translators usually specialize. So if you specialize in translating for film, you can join film industry groups. If you specialize in legal translation, you should join a bar association or something like that. That helps you keep up to date with the vocabulary, the trends in the industry that you are translating for. It makes you a better translator. Continuing education, again, very important. You have to learn these business skills, translation skills, and then vocabulary and practice in your area of expertise. Again, whether it's legal, business, oil and gas, whatever. One good place to start if you're a newcomer to the translation field is this Savvy Newcomer blog. It's also run by the ATA, the American Translators Association, and they cover all kinds of topics that are of interest to newcomers, everything from how to market yourself, how to set your rates, what to do about problematic clients and things like that. So this is a very helpful blog, a good place to start. As a business person, you need to sell yourself. This is really uncomfortable for a lot of us introvert translators, but you need to market yourself. So you need to have a brand. I have this logo, Fairweather-Vega, that I had designed a little while ago. You have to be visible too. So here's my profile online at that Prosy website I mentioned a while ago. It's a little bit out of date actually, but I also have like a Facebook page for my business. And I talk about work on Facebook a lot. If I was brave enough, I would be on Twitter talking about work all the time too. So you have to really be visible and not be too embarrassed to kind of market yourself, sell yourself. When you get a good client, you have to cultivate that relationship as well. Cherish that good client and cultivate the relationship, keep working with that client. And then be a joiner, like I was saying before, join the ATA, join ALTA, join groups. So other colleagues of yours know who you are too. A lot of my work comes from recommendations from my colleagues, and I refer a lot of work to other people as well. The last thing I think in our kind of checklist of how to get started as a freelancer is how you take care of logistics. You are a business, so you need to take care of all these things. You need to pay all your taxes. You might need to register as a business in your city, your county, your state. You need to think about health insurance. If you can't get it through a spouse or a partner, you need to buy it yourself probably, because freelancers aren't given health insurance as a matter of course. You have to think about banking, having a separate banking account, separate credit cards for your business expenses, tracking your expenses and income for your business separately from your kind of household costs. So this is a lot of work, but it's not as bad as it sounds. I hope I'm not scaring you away from freelancing. I think that's all I really have. I wanted to wish you good luck if you consider this career path, and feel free to email me too anytime if you don't want to answer your question here in the session. You can also check out my webpage, fairvega.com, and it will show you how I market myself and my services.